In this conversation, Emma and I explore the healing power of sound, not just as something beautiful to listen to, but as something that can help us to soften, to release, reconnect, and come back into harmony with ourselves. We talk about what actually happens in a sound bath, why sound can reach places that words sometimes cannot, and how voice, vibration, and instruments and ceremony can support us through the many seasons of womanhood. Welcome to Higher Self Mastery, the podcast for women ready to leave behind who they were told to be and remember who they truly are. I'm your host, Dharmi Schumacher. This is your space to come home to yourself, to honor the inner pull for more truth and more depth, and more meaning as you enter a new chapter of your life. Together, we're reframing midlife crisis into the midlife magic that it actually is, because this is your rebirth. Through soulful conversations and spiritual tools, you'll reconnect to your truth and reclaim your voice and live the life that your soul came here for. So let's begin. Emma is a highly respected practitioner in the shamanic sound healing community, bringing years of experience to her transformative work. Through her deeply intuitive and sacred approach, she offers shamanic sound healing sessions designed to nurture positive well-being, inner connection, support mental health and reduce anxiety and to ease pain. Emma's work centers on helping individuals to feel aligned, centered, and grounded, creating a space where profound transformation and connection can occur. Emma is not only a skilled sound healer, but also leads sound ceremonies, workshops, gratitude offerings, cacao ceremonies, and facilitates sacred space for groups of up to 100 delegates. Her sound journeys and ceremonies are crafted to guide participants towards a deep sense of inner harmony and self-awareness, supporting the soul's journey in a safe and welcoming space. So let's take a breath, settle in, and let's begin. Welcome, Emma, to the Higher Self Mastery podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. What an honor it is to have you here. Emma, I'd love for you to start by sharing a little bit about your background. How did you come into the world of sound, working with sound, ceremonies, and healing?
Hi, Dharmi. Really lovely to be with you today. Thank you for inviting me. So my background is from a very young age. I trained as a nurse, so that was kind of in me from very young to be in the healing professions. And so I trained as a nurse, and alongside that, as soon as I'd qualified as a nurse, I trained as a massage therapist with aromatherapy and massage, and then trained in reflexology. So my path has been this continuous flow, weaving between the two worlds of the mainstream medical model and the alternative model. And I trained as a yoga teacher many years ago, and through that, at the same time, for my own enjoyment, I was playing a lot of African drums, so djembe. So music and sound was really always foundational, dancing and rave culture. It's always been a massive part of who I am. And when I started playing djembes, there was a group of us that used to meet. And so between us, we kind of got singing bowls and gongs. And, there was this experience of my own personal journey and the benefits it gave to me. And then through yoga and my training with yoga and being introduced to mantra, and working with Nada yoga, the yoga of sound, the paths kind of weaved together. And that's when I went and trained as a sound therapist. And I had 3 very small children at the time. So to teach yoga and be able to get to classes wasn't possible, but I could do a sound ceremony. It was a sound bath back then. Once or twice a month I could fit that in with my childcare. So that's kind of, and then I've always sort of moved between the two worlds. And since then I've trained more deeply in shamanic practice, which is kind of how my sound baths turned more into ceremony, just through my own lived experience. Yeah.
Beautiful. And we're going to come to that in a moment because you really do have a wonderfully unique offering with your sound experiences that you do. But just before we do go into that, was there a moment in your life when sound became something more beautiful and more like medicine for you? Um, was there a particular moment in your life that you can remember where you felt like this is something deeper, this is working at a deeper level for me, or did it always resonate in that way for you?
I think sound, frequency, music for me has always been my medicine. I was the dance floor and the sound vibration. It was always my go-to as my kind
Yeah,
of my as my medicine from 18.
yeah.
And even younger. My mum played guitar, and I was in different choirs with the church when I was younger. But as I got older, it was my go-to, and it through the electronic music. But then as I got into the yoga and the sound, it was sound the music, the medicine found me, if I'm
Hmm.
honest. It called me. I remember walking onto Leicester Market and thinking, I need a gong, and there was a gong. I walked out of the side alley, there was a gong on an antique stall. So it was like when it needed to, it came to me. And the djembe again, it found me. And for me, I think as a very young girl, I kind of pulled away from my Christian upbringing, and I remember thinking about 13, 14. Well, I know there's a higher power, but for
Hmm.
me, this isn't it. I don't
Hmm.
enjoy this music. I don't enjoy the structure of this. And I went off traveling, and I was kind of searching for God, and said, then I found the djembe, and I played drums on the beaches, and then when I came back to Leicester, I actually found classes, and I went to djembe classes, and then for me, that is when the medicine kicked in, because I remember jamming with a whole group of people, and all of a sudden, the energy took over, and I was freestyling on the drum. And that is when I suddenly had that boom, that is God, that spirit moving through me. I've actually opened up, and this is the medicine moving through me, and that the freedom and the connection to the divine and the sense of presence within my own being when I first freestyled on a drum was everything. And that's where my
Wow.
journey started. The sound was with the djembe, was with the drum. And that's
Wow.
that's evolved through the years and through the gone. I've got different instruments now, and I work very differently when it comes to holding space and ceremony. But at that point was when, yeah, that's my medicine.
Wow,
Mm.
beautiful. I love so much about what you've just said there. You're absolutely right. When it's your calling, which it clearly is your calling, and I hope the listeners will get to sample a little bit of your offering as well, because they really, if they don't know you and they're not a part of your world already, they need to be.
Mm.
And it is your calling to share your gift, your talents, through sound. So I love how you say that it found you. It was like, here you are, Emma. This is what, this is your vessel, this is your medium, and go express your gift, your talent through these mediums. And you said you did a bit of traveling as well. So that would have, oh my gosh, like, because sound is such a big part of so many different cultures in so many different ways. So that would have been a massive influence in how people are using music and their voices, and because it's also, you said, as you said, you've come from that Christian background. A lot of people tuning in and listening will have probably come from some kind of upbringing in a form of faith as well. And music is such a big part of that as well, isn't it? Like there's this
Mm.
power of coming together and singing together and playing music together in a very intentional way. Um, was there anything when you were quite young when you did those travels? Were there any particular experiences or cultures that really stood out for you that you had those real resonant experiences with?
Um, yeah, back then I sort of traveled a lot of Asia and Australia.
Mm.
So finding different, yeah, on the beaches and jamming with people. And for me, any kind of traditional music, I find it so beautiful. So in Thailand, listening to, the monks and in different ceremonies I came across, and I traveled a little bit of India. Um, and again, just, yeah, the mantra is really powerful. And being around African drummers, I haven't been to Africa, but like different groups and settings that I've been in where the djembe is playing is so powerful. When I was in Australia, that's when I first picked up, or I first managed to access lessons. Yeah, there was a fantastic group of African drummers there. It was just like really, really powerful.
Amazing, amazing. So, Emma, could you please enlighten us a little bit about how sound actually works on the body and the nervous system? What is sound healing?
The sound healing is the way sound works on the body. We have to look at the energetics. So we've got a physical body, emotional, mental, spiritual body. So if anyone studied the yogic, we've got this expanded light, auric field and light body. And energy is coming from the outside and coming in. So the physical is the last place to receive the energy. So what the sound does is it comes in as a wave. And so the last place is anchoring in, it is into the physical. So because I'm trained as a nurse, yeah, I've done many years of kinesiology and different energetic healing therapies as well. So what happens is we get born as a pure being. We've got our ancestral patterns that we carry and the familial patterns, but essentially we've got a divine essence. And as we go through life, we go through experiences. If you think of the cells of the body as round and vibrant and coherent, and as we go through life and we have these experiences, the cellular, it just becomes dented and a bit blur and a bit twisted, and so it's not fully resonant because we're carrying experiences. So whether that's emotional, whether that's mental, whether that is spiritual stuff we've brought with us, past life stuff, this life stuff, it impact, and where it's stored is in cellular memory. So if you look at Bruce Lipton and the epigenetics, it's like it's all held in cellular memory. So when the sound comes in, if you look at testes and everything is sound, frequency, and vibration, the sound's coming in, it kind of jiggles the cells around and it comes into the spaces between the cells. And where there was indents and where there was trauma or whatever is held, it can slowly and gently just start to release those patterns and create a more coherent cell where everything can start to communicate again. But the special part about the sound is you can go anywhere and listen to sound, even to just through popular music and having your own experience of just listening to music. It creates an elevated space. Or if your body doesn't like that, it can create dissonance and it's too much to listen to that. But sound plus an intention is what takes the sound much deeper into the cells. We can listen to music, we can get a vibe, we can feel better, we can feel happy. But when you start to work intentionally, like with anything, when you start to work with intention, that is what allows the sound to drop much deeper into the psyche of the cells, and then you can start to be healing some really deep stuff. And it's non-invasive. It's only going to go where you need it to go. And where you are capable and able to receive that frequency. So when I'm holding a sound ceremony, I'm tuned into I create a very sacred, safe space because I work shamanically. So I'm calling in a team to hold the space. So that's the difference. Some people will do sound baths and they might use the instruments, and that's a sound bath. And it's what I did for many years until I deepened my own practice. And now, and my own experience with the ancestral realms, it's like I will never, because I understand what people are holding, because I think as a therapist, as you move through your own journey, you have a deeper capacity to hold because of what you're shifting and clearing yourself. So our own individual practice and healing is what gives us the capacity to hold space for people and bigger stuff. So, yeah, I always open up and calling guides and allies to hold the space, and then I become a vessel and a channel for the sound to come through. But sound on its own affects the brainwave. So when we're looking at the brainwave, beta frequency is kind of our waking state, and then you've got the alpha theta states, which are much deeper, deep sleep and healing frequencies. So just a regular drum beat or crystal bowl will affect the brainwave. So as soon as the brainwave starts to change frequency, physiologically the body is going to respond to that brainwave. It's kind of entrainment. The body, so your breathing rate will lower, your blood pressure will lower, your heart rate will slow down. And that's there the effects that start to come in through this brainwave changing. You then get the physiological response. So then you do get the deeper spaces of relaxation, and it can aid a meditative space. It can help to reduce cortisol, to reduce stress. And so when you're starting to bring coherence to the nervous system, then you've got the capacity for the vagus nerve to unwind, and where we're holding trauma is in this vagus nerve, and through different experiences that can get locked, and we can be in fight or flight or even freeze. So the sound is so beautiful because it just comes in and it just soothes and settles and just allows the body to drop into the space that we know we should be living in. But society and our busy ways of life often just don't allow for that. We have to bring these practices in. So yeah, it's really powerful, really powerful. And there's lots of research, and now the science is starting to back it up. You know, I think historically and indigenously, sound was always used in indigenous cultures as a way to connect, as a way to honor the land, the ancestors. And now the science is starting to prove, you know, like there's often research actually the sound frequencies can blast cancer cells.
Wow.
And, you know, and this is what's starting to come through now is more of the scientific backing.
Wow.
So yeah, for the benefits of sound.
Wowzers, that was an amazing explanation. Thank you for that. And there's so much in that. Where do we start? um, so to just clarify, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I myself do wonder if it is just linguistics here. So you explained a sound bath can be this pleasant experience where someone's playing the sound bowls and some other instruments around you, and you are essentially bathed in sound. But the
Yeah.
difference then with that, a sound bath and sound therapy and sound healing. So your sound healing, because you work shamanically, you call on your ancestors, you call on guides, you call on spirits. So what's the difference between the sound bath and sound therapy? Somebody who maybe doesn't call upon the ancestors and the guides in quite the same way. What's the nuanced difference here? Just because if somebody is attending sound baths or sound therapy sessions, so they can better understand what it is they can expect or what they should expect from these different experiences.
For me, when I'm thinking of a sound bath, I'm thinking of a group experience, probably held in a local hall or
Uh-huh.
a venue, and people come together and they lie down and have a relaxation. And
Okay.
maybe sound therapy is more like you're seeing a practitioner and you're working
Uh-huh.
over a period of time on a particular issue, or, you know, like something you're working on more long term with a set of sessions.
Okay.
Even though for me, in the sound bath, you are getting therapy.
Yeah.
And if you're attending sound bath regularly, whether it's once a month or once every 3 months, the more you do it, the more your body remembers, and it's easier. And this is what I've experienced with people coming for many years. When you first come, people are a bit like, oh, what's making all the noises? They want to have a look. But the more they do it, they can just drop into the space much more quickly. Um, so yeah, I think that's more the therapy side of it. You can actually
Mm.
use specific frequencies to target specific issues and different sounds. You know, when you look at the octave of notes, it comes up the body. So, you know, you might have a note that you've got digestive issues, so you're going to work with the
Mm.
frequencies that actually really kind of affect the digestive area of the body. So it's probably just
Mm.
more fine tuned to a specific person and a specific need and request.
Understood.
And sound ceremony for me is the fact that I'm in ceremony. I'm not just playing a load of bowls. I'm going into the deep ceremony, calling in a very sacred space and guides, guardians, allies that I worked with in my own practice. And I just become the vessel. And obviously I'm tuning into what's going on in the room, but it's not me. There's a sound, and there's much more coming in to help hold that space.
Beautiful. Okay, that's a great explanation. That really helps to clarify the difference there. And to go back on something else you mentioned as well, the power of mantras. And then you've also talked about how we've, as humans, we've used sound for millennia to heal as medicine in different indigenous cultures. Tell me, what is it about mantras that you really feel is a powerful form of sound healing, in your opinion?
I think for me, when you think about a mantra, like often it's in, the Sanskrit is a very ancient language, because specifically a lot of them, I'm through my yoga practices, I worked quite extensively with the mantras, but it's the repetition. So actually, as a frequency, you're tapping into a lineage, you're tapping into a frequency that has been chanted thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So there is power and there is medicine in literally the amount of times it's been chanted by the amount of people. And you do that in a certain place where the energy of a land is holding that space, then there's just so much power coming through the lineage. More recently, I have moved away from mantra because when I started to do the ceremonies more deeply, and it's almost like I'm tapping into a light language. It feels like a star language. And just through my opening and my allowing, it's not a specific mantra. Shamanically, I trained through a Peruvian shaman, which took me deeper into my own ancestral roots, the Irish and English roots, and my own heritage. So again, different languages and ancient languages just all hold a different frequency. So I don't specifically go to any one right now. I kind of tap into what I feel I need in the moment, and more I just allow my own voice and my open channel to bring through, and that will change. Sometimes it's a very masculine voice I can hear, sometimes it's a very feminine voice, and it's more sounds rather than actual language that comes through. I mean, I feel like it is another language from from a higher realm, but it's I think that's the power of the mantra. It's just the repetition and the lineage and the medicine that's carried through that.
Can we, Emma, explore a little bit more about the different ways that people may experience sound healing? More often than not, most people will have experience in a sound bath situation in this sort of group setting, as you mentioned, and fewer people in this one-to-one sound therapy, perhaps. But in a sound bath, you've got things like gongs, you mentioned the djembe, the drums. There'll be different types of drums, maybe singing bowls, and other beautiful instruments. Like you mentioned, when you first go, you can't help but peep because you hear the sounds and you're like, that's beautiful. And you want to just open an eye and see what's making that sound. And it's usually these different instruments. Now, I know you have mentioned here, and I've been to a number of your sound baths in the past over the years, and you also mentioned using your voice as well as a big component in this sound experience, whether it's in a ceremonial experience or sound bath experience. What are the different ways that people can expect to receive sound healing?
Yeah. So there's I use a variety of different instruments, and people will use instruments differently depending on their training or their intuition. And I've sort of developed a bit of a flow how I use the instruments. Um, and we're thinking sort of elementally as well, because different instruments kind of represent the different elements and different frequencies, whether it's the water or the fire or the air, um, or the ground and rootedness of the drum and the earth. Um, so you can use a shamanic drum. I tend to use it. This is my drum. And so I'll open up the space with that, but then I will do that over people's bodies as well. And I find the drum is a really good way to kind of shake and wriggle and just kind of create a bit of movement in the body, just to shake things up a little bit, because it's like I say, when everything's sort of stuck and locked, the drum's a really great way, boom, connect with your heartbeat, connect with your mother line, your father line. For me, that's the tuning I give people. And then I'll bring in the rattle and use the rattle just to clear. For me, that's clearing any dense energy, and you start any more stuck spaces, just creating space. And then I tend to go into the crystal bowls. Um, and then but I'm singing and sounding all the time as I'm guided to. Um, because the crystal bowls have this amazing resonance and this way of kind of enveloping you in this woo, woo, woo. When you get the different frequencies that come together, it's almost like a binaural. It's a woo, 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 woo. It's just creating that space, and that's when I feel the wave starts to come in as things start to move and flow. And then I've got Tibetan bowls as well, but they have a very different frequency. They're still very beautiful, but again, it's just different energy and different notes are going to affect different places in the body. And then I've got the big gongs, and that's like a journey on its own. I mean, some people don't do a sound ceremony; they'll just do gong bath, and it'll just be gongs. So not everyone uses lots of instruments. Some people focus just on crystal bowls, or some people have just gongs. And then I use the flute, the rain sticks, kosher chimes. So there's so many different instruments you can use. And through the years, even when the kids were little, they have their little toy instruments. I mean, one of my favorite instruments is it's a bell shaker that I've got. It was actually one of my kids' shaker set, like an instrument set when they were little. But to me, when I play it, and I've still got it 15 years later, I'm kind of with like the cattle on the highlands in Tibet, like that's where it takes me. So it doesn't have to be a big fancy instrument, right? Or a big expensive. This the simplest instruments can create a frequency shift and can create a really profound experience.
What I'm really hearing here is all of the different instruments, including your voice, they all emit a different frequency. Therefore, each and every one of those is going to have a different effect. Like you said, the drum shakes things up and loosens up the cells, and then the rattle comes in, and it, in your opinion, feels like it's a clearing. And you've got all of these different frequencies. We see a lot of stuff online about binaural beats and at this frequency, and listen to this to expand your heart, and it's at a certain frequency, or listen to this to ground yourself, and it's at a different frequency. And we can get into all the technicalities of all of this, but really this is an embodied practice. And ultimately it's about what it feels like, isn't it? And what just resonates for us in that moment. Because in my experience of attending sound baths, from each practitioner, they've all been so very different. Like sometimes I can go into a sound bath and it will be so gentle and soft and relaxing, and maybe I've even nodded off. It's been relaxing would be the word that I would use to describe it. And then sometimes you can go and there's no relaxing to be done, because it's this boom 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 boom, like this big strong powerful energy, and I've enjoyed it just as much, but a very very different frequency and a very different vibe as well. Would you say that's a fair description? Is really finding a sound healer that you just enjoy, whose sound you enjoy, the way that they play? Or maybe it's like going to a variety of these different ones, depending on what you're called to and what you need in that moment. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think we've all got our own unique signature blueprint. So
Mm,
depending on what that is and what your contract is to deliver, you're going to get a different experience from different people, because everyone's their own internal vibration, and really to a degree, my own vibration determines the vibration of the instruments as well. Because
mm,
it's, even though you open up as a channel, this is my energy, this is how I'm delivering. So everyone's energy is slightly different. Um, and again, it's really worth exploring and going for different sessions and seeing, because everyone is different, and maybe at different points in your life, depending on what you're going through and what you're moving through, you need different
mm,
frequencies. Maybe you need it a bit more driving to really clear something heavy, and then a little bit more floaty just to kind of allow you to be in that more etheric space. But sometimes the life journey takes you deep in, and you've got to go rooted, you've got to go deep, and you've got to clear the nitty gritty. It's like once you go into the underworld and you're faced
mm,
with that part of the journey,
mm,
because for me, spirituality, new age spirituality can be a lot of love and light, and let's just do this, and let's heal this, and let's just do that. But there comes a point where you can't just love and light everything. It's like the embodiment journey takes you deep, and it takes you into the body, and it can take you very deeply into the underworld, where you have to sit and face your pain to actually allow it to shift and move. And that's
mm,
been my journey with the perimenopause. Was there was a part of me that suddenly I was faced with that I hadn't been faced with before, that was more gritty and more painful. And
mm.
but that was the embodiment journey for me. It was like, right, you've done that part, now you're going to do this part, because as much as there's light, there's shadow, and it's so depending where you are in your journey, it depends what
Mm,
sound you need, and like say how you embody the practice actually.
mm, I love that you just brought that up, because healing, I think there's a misconception out there that healing needs to feel good. When so often healing, when we really start doing some of that deep work inside of us, is incredibly uncomfortable. It may bring up, just bring to the surface so much that can feel painful or traumatizing or sad or grief, like all of those emotions that we have been avoiding, facing and have repressed over the years. And so healing isn't this love and light and happy and expansive, joyful experience all of the time. So it's really important that you brought that point up, because somebody who might be attending a sound bath or sound therapy session um, may step out of it and feeling really agitated, or feeling really angry or sad, and not coming away from the experience feeling blissful, which is what they might have this preconception that's what should be happening. So I think that's
Mhm.
a really important point that you bring up there, Emma. Um, and that leads me to sort of ask you, from a more practical point of view, what can a individual expect if they go to a sound bath? And I know you can only sort of speak from your experience and what you offer. So do they come and lie down? Can they stay seated? Is it normal for them to fall asleep? Can the healing be subtle? Like we've touched on a little bit here already, but if you could just talk a little bit more into that, what the experience might be for somebody who's never been to one before.
Yeah, I mean, I always invite people to come with a nest. So, the more comfortable you are, and as long as you're warm, because it's like having a massage. Once you come for the sound
Mm,
ceremony, you're going to drop your body temperature, because physiologically everything's slowing down. So your body temperature
mm,
drops. So I always say to people, make sure you've got blankets, make sure you've got, in the winter, bring a hot water bottle if you want to. And I give people the option, because some people want to come, but they're not, if they've got arthritic conditions or
mm,
sore bits and bobs, whatever, they're more comfortable sitting up.
mm,
And you can have just as powerful of experience sitting up as you can lying down. It's, however you're comfortable, come. and experience the sound. And again, depending what's going on for you and what your intention is, and also what where your soul is in its evolutionary journey of what you're ready to see, face, feel, clear, um, will determine your experience. I always say this to people at the end, make sure you're present now, make sure you're in your body to drive home, because it can be live in a very altered state where speed limits are just irrelevant. But actually, be mindful of how you feel. If you think you're going to do a sound ceremony, then just go back out and go uptown and go shopping. Like, it's not a wise use of the medicine, right? Because you've suddenly gone into an altered state and you're trying to carry on. So give yourself a bit of space and time to go and be quiet, because the ripple, when I first attended a sound bath, 2 days later, I'd lie my head to sleep and I'd feel this sensation of the waves still going on inside my body, because I'm so sensitive to the sound. So depending on what's going on, I just say to people, go home, be quiet, find a little bit of still space, go into nature if you can, and just be present. Depending on what your body needs and what you're ready for, you might go home, you might feel energized off the sound.
Yeah.
You might feel peaceful and sleepy and you want to go home and have a really good sleep. Like I say, you might feel really triggered and it might actually have just unlocked something where suddenly you're now able to access anger or shame or grief or resentment, anything, the way we shove this stuff down. And as women, vroom, we pushed it into our wombs. That's, as well as ourselves, a lot of it's locked into the womb space. But also, maybe ancestrally, you might get more vivid dreams. You might get ancestors coming to you in a dream. You might receive messages through dream time. So it's really like an individual journey and never really the same journey. It's like, because the sound plays differently every time, depending on who's in the room, depending on what's going on planetarily, what's happening with different conjunctions, alignments. It's a powerful full moon, if it's a super moon. All these things can amplify the sound, amplify what's happening in our body, because we're not separate from it. We're all just part of the earth, part of the cosmos. It's existing within us. And when we really tap into that, we are cosmic beings, spiritual beings in this physical body. Yeah, it's powerful, really powerful and I always advise people just be gentle and be gentle with yourself, because you might suddenly have a release and have tears, and that's okay. But for a long time, I just associated tears with I'm failing, something's not right. As I've got older, it's more like, these tears need to come out. That's okay. You find your way back once you've done that. But it's the dance between the joy and the pain and the grief and the sorrow. It's the whole experience of being human. And so, yeah, I just advise people to just be present and allow themselves to be present with their body, with their emotions, with their thoughts, and see what arises after. And just, yeah.
That's such good advice, because you hear more and more about sound baths being offered. For example, this is just the first thing that comes to my mind, is like in a corporate environment at lunchtime, in between the meetings. Now, on the one hand, this is beautiful in that it's going to make it accessible and expose people that ordinarily maybe wouldn't take themselves off to go and experience a sound bath. But it also overlooks that it is powerful, and it's not going to just be this relaxing experience, even if the sound healer is playing very gently or maybe very intentionally playing frequencies that are relaxing, but we don't know what's going to come up for us individually. There's no predetermining that, and it's really important, like you said, to just remain present and give yourself the space, not to then be rushed, like to jam it in between, like a sandwich in between everything else that you're doing in your day, because you need that time and that space to then process it. Because ultimately, whatever your experience, sound is going to heal you, is what I'm really hearing in all of this, whether it's the sound bath experience or whether it's that one-to-one customized, tailored therapy that you're receiving, or whether it's in that more ceremonial way with our ancestors and our guides. And whatever it is, ultimately, because of the way that the sound is working vibrationally on a cellular level, you can't stop that healing from happening. And so we just don't know what is going to come up and how we're going to feel at the end of it. So just feel like that's a really important point for people to be aware of. Like maybe if they are going to go and experience it at work for the first time, or maybe in a festival setting where everything is like all fun and games and happy, and there's just another thing they're doing in between, and, the other sessions and whatever they've picked out, that to also be prepared for that as well, to give some space if they really can, to integrate what's going on.
Yeah, and that's the key word, it's integration. I think it's, like, yeah, we see a lot of the plant medicine series that go on and people get fixated on just another ceremony, and there's, the integration is huge. And actually, because that's where the sitting with it and sitting with yourself really comes in. It's a really important part of.
And you just mentioned too, like, you're quite sensitive to it, and you could still feel the sound waves 2 days later. Maybe some of us are, won't have quite that experience where we are feeling or if the sound waves moving through our bodies days later, but it does take days and weeks sometimes for the healing to emerge and surface, because it's still working, isn't it? It's still working within our bodies. So it's not just that immediate experience, or necessarily even just those minutes or hours straight after the healing has been received, but it continues in our body to work for days and weeks afterwards. So that integration needs to continue in that time space as well. I feel like some of my, the different ceremonies and things that I've attended, the realization, sometimes that penny doesn't drop for a week later, and then it's just like, okay, now I see it. Now I get it. And I see how that's landed for me. And it can be really subtle and really quite soft and slow as well. It might be immediate. Absolutely. It can be as well. But it's all of that and everything in between.
It's the same way people will come being really skeptical. I can't relax. I don't relax. They're, bang, they're deep in sleep. They're snoring. And it's like, you said you actually needed to do that. So some people can go really, really just, and that's probably where they need to be, because on a subconscious level, then they're allowing the healing to come in. Whereas if they stay conscious and skeptical, they're always fighting it, even though they're curious and they've come anyway. So it's really interesting when you see that.
Definitely. And I spoke about this actually just a couple of weeks ago regarding some ceremonies that I attended. And one of the key things that I was reminded of and I learned in that, and which I feel called to share again, and just because you've just mentioned it there, it's that the work is being done in the subconscious level. So even if you attend a sound bath and you might walk away feeling like, I don't think anything really happened. Like, yeah, that was nice and it just felt really relaxing, but nothing big or deep happened. Don't underestimate what's going on a subconscious level, because the healing doesn't have to be loud. The healing can be so subtle and happening out of your conscious awareness, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. And I think that's a really important point with all of this work. Would you say, are there any advisories around any individuals that probably shouldn't attend a sound bath or a sound therapy session? Is there any sort of physical, medical conditions where people should maybe be more cautious?
Yeah, for sure. I think people that experience tinnitus can find it quite tough. But maybe on a more therapeutic level, you could work on a one-to-one. People with pacemakers, and again, sort of different conditions. I would say the first trimester of pregnancy is always a caution. But me myself, I did sound healing all through my pregnancies, but that was my choice. But I would think to advise people, yeah, we have to be safe. And anyone with schizophrenia, bipolar, and mental health issues, I mean, for depression and anxiety, actually, it could be really beneficial because you're starting to work with the frequency and change. But anyone that's got more serious mental health, yeah, I would really advise to seek medical advice before, if they wanted to attend. And sort of any heart conditions with pacemakers, anything that's got metal in, because it could, anyone that's got not implants, false lid, like a hip replacement or a knee replacement. Sometimes the way the frequency comes in, it can just disturb things a little bit, the frequency themselves, so it can kind of move things a bit inside the body. So anything like stents or stuff like that is worth just getting the all clear from the doctor and being cautious.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Some of those things I wouldn't have thought about, like the metal in the body. That's not something that would have come to my mind. Because again, coming back to this point, it may just seem like this really relaxing surface level experience, but actually there's so much deep healing taking place in the body that it is important. It is healing. So we do really need to address all of those things as well. Emma, could you speak a little bit to the woman in the midlife transition, which is most of my audience tuning in today, how sound healing can benefit them, and how that it may aid in the transitions and the changes they're experiencing at this phase in their life?
Yeah, I think, for every woman, her journey of perimenopause and menopause is different, and the different sort of symptoms that arise and experiences that arise. I know for me, as I entered that phase of my life, I started experiencing anxiety, and I'd never had anxiety in my life. So it was a really uncomfortable feeling to sit with because I didn't understand what it was for a long time. I just thought there's something happening. It felt like a fire in my belly. Um, and then with that came the overwhelm. So I think these are really, as our estrogen drops, um, our coping mechanisms change, because where we've had to push to keep the estrogens keep us going and juggling everything, all of a sudden that's not there. So for me, it's taken me deeper into, I feel underneath the anxiety for me, what it's taking me on is a very, it's taken me deep into my ancestral lineage. It's taken me deep into the mother line, and actually so much suppressed anger and pain, actually, unprocessed pain. So, and it's almost like keening, like a lot in the Irish tradition, they keen, they wail, they kind of. So for my own practice, when I'm experiencing those deep feelings, I just get my drum and I just start to chant and allow whatever needs to come, because sometimes it's overwhelming tears that I just don't understand where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And that's it, and that's just, yeah, I just sound that pain, and I literally just go into my body and I'm like, whatever the sound that wants to come up, and it can be powerful. All of a sudden, a power and an energy can come up and take over, which I feel is where we've had our voices suppressed. When we hit the menopausal years of our life, it's our own suppression of the stuff we've locked down that we didn't have time, space, energy, awareness to process. But also it can be our lineage and the feminine cycle. Where we're at in humanity right now, any woman in perimenopause right now, we're at an evolutionary shift of times on the planet, and the feminine voice is rising. It has to, so we can come back into balance. So just make sound, create sound, and if you need to listen to sounds to help soothe those troubling symptoms, because if you're not used to experiencing that and that's what arises for you, it can be really confusing and quite scary, actually. And then you can go deeper into the psychology of it all, and there's other work to be done with the shadow aspects of ourselves and the feminine lineages. But when it comes to sound, it's like put on a yoga nidra, take rest, use sound to create a sacred rest in the day, because I feel for me, I hit perimenopause in adrenal fatigue. I didn't realize it at the time, but years of being a single parent, years of just juggling everything, it was like, I'm actually exhausted. I'm tired. And I hadn't realized how tired I was and how much I've carried everything. So for me, I've used it to create pauses in my day. If it's you need to start the day with some music, because I found the mornings were harder for me because all our hormones drop in the night. So mornings I found were quite tricky when I first went deep into the perimenopause, because you're bottoming out in the night and when the estrogen doesn't kick back in, you can be left with this low mood or this anxiety, and use the sound to create space between the feeling in your body and the thought. Because if you get, for me, what I've experienced was the feeling of anxiety, and then I'd be like, I'm not okay. And the thought would kick in straight, there's something wrong, I'm not okay. And then it's harder to separate and go, actually, this is an experience. My body's changing. So for me, I use the sound just to create the space between the thought, the sensations in my body and the thoughts. Because, that it's like being in that premenstrual, in the autumn phase of your cycle permanently in perimenopause. So the inner critic can kick in. And if that inner critic can kick in, there's a whole heap of negative stuff that you can be telling yourself, whether it's self-esteem, self-worth, belonging. There's so much to it. But through some of my journey with menopause mentors is, where does that voice come from? That inner critic voice often isn't even your voice. That is something carried down through the lineage. So it's actually, at this point in our life, it's using sound to help us, to hold us, to voice in touch, to create our own sound. Because actually then, if you've got this strong expression of voice, you can create more healthy boundaries. And it's actually at this point in our lives reassessing where you've been a people pleaser, where you've said yes because it was easy, where you've overgiven, all the things that are kind of unconscious because we're in that mode, and that's how society's conditioned us, give, to then start to reframe and come back inwards and take the sound inwards. So what is this I'm experiencing? Is this pain? Is this grief? Is this sadness? And starting to dialogue, maybe draw a picture while you create the sound. What's that image? So I use the sound and imagery together. So I make a sound and I might just do a painting or just draw a doodle, and then, okay, so what is it trying to tell me something? Is it trying to change? And maybe the sound will change. Maybe the image will turn into something different. And that's a really beautiful journey, because it's almost like what's in the unconscious is what starts to surface in perimenopause. And until we become conscious of what's in the unconscious, that's what's driving our life. That's what's driving our choices and driving our experiences. And I think for me, it was a very confusing time, because I'd done healing for 30 years, and all of a sudden all my tools, all the practices fell away and they weren't working. My yoga practice didn't make me feel the same way. My kinesiology that I'd done for many years still didn't hit the spot. I couldn't get rid of this feeling. So that's why we're talking about the embodiment journey. We can do all the etheric healing in the world, heal this chakra, heal that, and it has an impact. But for me, perimenopause is about the embodiment. It's about bringing that in. The sound really helps me to stay in my body and to stay present with the uncomfortable, because there's a part of it going, well, we're rebirthing ourselves at this point in our life, and so that can actually bring up birth trauma. It's like on so many levels, the sound is just the expression of everything that's coming up. And when you hit those moments of heart, then you can express as well. But mine's been a very deep journey into the underworld, and the sound has actually helped me to just express some of the pain and the grief that I'm having to shift for the lineage, which has been obviously what I've contracted to do in this lifetime, to get back to the joy and accepting. I've said I lived in a world of unicorns and fairies for a long time, and I loved it there. So to have the balance and be in the underworld, with the Inanna, when you look at the Inanna, the goddesses, and using some of the goddess energies to really help to embody, because actually it's all of it. We're all of it, and out of that darkness and is the sound. That's where the sound is created from. I go back to the, I do meditations with the galactic womb space, with the in the womb of Mother Earth, and remembering we're just this vessel, this portal between the heavens and the earth, and how do we express all of that? And so sound is been really expression, but being held, finding different frequencies. My music taste changed, everything changed. It's like using, using those tools and using the sound to just to create. You can put the frequencies on and play them through the night, and you can put, songs that uplift you, songs that help you to cry, songs that there's so many aspects and avenues to how it can really help you.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. There's so much depth and richness in what you just shared there. But the overarching themes of what I'm hearing is, and the takeaways for the ladies is that everything you're experiencing is happening beautifully for your growth and evolution. Nothing is ever working against us. And if something difficult is coming to the surface, it's there for us to heal, because we are ready to heal it, as challenging as that may be, and then using sound to support us as we go through these different journeys. But ultimately, what you're also saying as well, what I'm hearing is for us to take that radical responsibility, because we do have the healing power within ourselves, and that's so empowering. And that's what this whole podcast is about empowering women, to help them to see that they have everything they need already within them, in their container, within their being. It's just about tapping in and being able to find them and remember it and to unleash it again. Yeah, there's so much that you said there. And that's made me also think. I used to play music in the morning when I used to get up, and for some reason, like little habits fall away sometimes, and you don't even notice they're fallen away. And you've just reminded me that I don't play music in the morning anymore, and I really need that, because those mornings, especially if you've got kids, can just, they don't want to get out of bed, they don't want to get ready, they don't want to get ready for school, and all of that can be that back and forth and that pulling, that playing some kind of music in the morning, whatever is resonating for me that day, just helps me to keep my nervous system regulated. So I keep singing along, and they can be like pushing back at me, and I'm just like, it's okay. Right. And it just stops me from firing up, basically. Yeah, it really does.
But again, for me, I think perimenopause has brought, have a morning playlist ready. Because if I get up and I'm having one of those mornings where actually I feel everything's low, sometimes I haven't got the brain capacity to even think what song I want to put on. So have a playlist ready that you can just tap into. And for me, I walk the dog every morning down by the little river in Elston. So I sing with the water every morning. And that's been such a holding practice. Sing with the waters. If you've got a cup of water, sing with your waters. Because like you say, it's surfacing for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think to feel is to heal.
Yes.
And when we've not, as mothers, even if not mothers, when we're busy in the maiden and mothering stage of your life, we're just giving, and then you enter into this sovereign woman phase where it's about reclaiming our sovereignty and actually, what are our needs? Actually, when you start to tap in at this point in your life, you might realize that you actually self-abandoned at age 5, and you've never really known what your needs are since that point. So these are the deepest things that can come up. So it's like how reclaiming. There's a really beautiful one that I put on. I call back all my power to me from all person, place, and entity. It's a song, a spoken chant song. But just to put that on in the more empowering songs that bring you back to yourself and back to presence and back to your body, and knowing that at this point we can't be the same as we were. And so that rite of passage, the transition, it's like when you first become a mother, there's a transition into mothering. And when you come out of the mothering stage and you start to transition to that next phase, the maiden self is not dead, but she has to take her place. And that's been tricky for me. I found that difficult because that little wants to just carry on going, ah, but it's like, well, actually she's there sometimes, and other times it's this older aspect that needs to go, no, I need rest. need to say
Yeah.
no, and it's an absolute no. It's not a maybe anymore. It's a no,
Yeah.
and so it's finding again music that empowers you because it's got such an amazing ability, and
Hmm.
dance music
Mm.
through the dance. For me, embodiment dance is my medicine. I go to the speakers, I go to the dance because boom, I can be in the speakers and I can be chanting and I can be channeling. I'm fully active in my body. And it's finding those ways because that for me is like that's where I feel my power and my strength and my fire on those days
Mm.
where I'm tired and I'm fed up and I'm just like in a process, but
Mm.
like boom, back to the speakers. And that's something that I'm looking at evolving actually. There's a beautiful place where I work of that has an amazing set of speakers and the tones and the frequencies that come out of that when I'm using the microphone as a way for women to come and be together to create, to express rage, righteous anger, and just
Yeah.
to express together because it's something about doing it together
Hmm.
makes that acceptable. It could feel a bit scary to do it on your own when you're faced with very overwhelming feelings and sensations that you might not have experienced ever in your life. Because as we hit that midpoint, you're hitting 50, it's higher on return. There's an astrological element to it as well as this deep rite of passage, which is a shamanic initiation in itself. But
Yeah.
can be a very empowering part of the journey if you've got the right support. So yeah, finding support and just learning to use the voice.
Beautiful. I love that. And I think a lot of women will be very interested in that. There's been quite a bit of that surfacing over the last few years, like rage workshops, and I definitely see the value and the power in those. So I'd love to see one for women here on my doorstep, as I'm sure other
Mm.
women would as well. So please, yes, if you feel called to do that, Emma, please follow that nudge. And I love what you said there as well, not to give ourselves more things to think about in those moments, but to have that playlist. I have a playlist exactly like that. It's called Morning Inspiration, and it is the uplifting music, and a lot of it is chanting music that I can sing
Yeah.
along to as well, so I can really move. I can't be dancing necessarily first thing in the morning, but I can be chanting as
No.
I'm putting the coffee on or making the breakfast and just singing while I go about my day. And
Yeah, yeah.
either on my headphones or put it on the speaker, so it's really I really feel immersed in it as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I'm there with all the dancing stuff too. I'm by the speaker.
Yay.
You and me, girl. I totally understand the power of that, and that's something I has been my medicine since I was a child as well. Now, Emma, you've got one of the most mesmerizing voices that I have ever heard, and which is why I love to come to your sound baths. Would you be kind enough, if it feels right to you right now, to share um, how you use your voice? Or would you like to, if that's not resonating for you right now, then maybe give us a little demo of some of your instruments or just some of the sound that you offer?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, for me, when I started the sound journey, I played more sounds, and then with the crystal balls, I started to sing along. So it kind of evolved for me to the point where it was just coming through, and I was just like,
Mm.
I've just got to get out of the way and allow it. So I could do the crystal ball, and I'll just sort of, yeah. So for those listening, just taking a moment just to be careful if you're driving, clearly, like because it can just send you a little bit altered. Um, and always just calling in creator, cosmic mother and father, the ancestors, and Mother Earth, east to west, north to south, the earth, the water, the fire, the air, and just above and below, just acknowledging our oneness. And just taking a breath in and exhaling down, down, down to the very end of your breath. Nowhere to go, nothing to do, just in this moment, receiving the sound. Maybe just setting yourself an intention. What do you need to receive today? What do you need to release today? What do you need clarity on? I am, I am, I all I am, I am, I am, my own.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Oh, what a gift. What a gift. I just feel like I was not expecting that. I could have listened to that all day. Emma, you are so talented, so gifted. And for those of you listening in, I mean, what you will have heard is not doing Emma's talents and gift any justice, because we weren't set up to record the sound, the musical sound and the instruments, you know. But I hope that's given you a little taste and a little flavor of what it would feel like and what the experience would be like if you were to go and receive some sound healing with Emma. So on that note, Emma, how can people find you? How can they work with you? Have you got any events coming up in the near future where people can come and experience what you do?
Yeah, I have. I run ceremonies in Narber Road area of Leicester, Desford and Anstey. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Harmonic Health and Emma Kennedy Harmonic Health. And through the summer, I'm going to be doing some work at Eco Joe's and the Lionsgate ceremony, which is up at Beacon Hill. So I've been called to do that for the last few years. So that'll be a big ceremony where people come together in prayer, in gratitude, and then we run ceremony with the land, with the energies of the land. So I've got a ceremony on the 22nd of June at Desford, and the 3rd of July, there's one at the Manor House. And people can have a look on the social medias. I've also got my Bookworm site and the website. I don't tend to advertise stuff on the website for ceremonies. I keep that more through Bookworm, but there's a list of what I do. And then I do one-to-one work from home. So my journey with sound also took me into the womb healing. So I do womb healing ceremonies with people, working with rebozo wrapping, where I intuitively use the voice to heal, to shift the fit energy, and allow women to really access their own voice. My Thursday sessions at the Manor House are women's circle. It turned into a women's circle over the years. So we do voice work and ceremony work, and then I take people into the sound journey. Yeah, and maybe something on the solstice. It might be a bit of a last minute thing, but there's something sort of doing with that. But yeah.
See what download comes to you for that.
Yeah.
So many different options there, ladies, for those of you tuning in. So many different ways to work with Emma, and I cannot recommend her enough. I mean, I don't need to. You heard what she can do. But I personally have been attending her sound baths, and I've been to the Lionsgate portal at Beacon Hill as well for probably for the last sort of 3 years since I first came across you. So I dip in and out. I've even taken my mum. I remember on my mum's birthday, I was like, Mum, I've got a different birthday present for you. And she was like, okay, what are we doing? I was like, just come and have a listen. And we came to one of your sound baths and she loved it. She absolutely loved it. Like, she's in her 70s. She's never done anything like that before. And she really enjoyed it. So it's
And I
never
do
too
some
late.
one-to-one. Yeah, I do the one-to-one work by Zoom if
Mm,
people can't make it. It can be just as powerful because you're actually in your own space. And
mm,
again, I set the settings so that you
mm,
really feel the fullness. So I've done
yeah,
online sound ceremonies that way. And
yeah.
when I'm in the hospital, I'll get the bay of women singing, or like I just take it in and out and just do it different ways.
I love it. I love that. That's beautiful. I will absolutely, of course, be linking all of those things in the show notes. So it'll be nice and easy to find Emma, and it is Emma at Harmonic Health is your brand name.
Yeah.
Emma, it's been an absolute joy and a pleasure talking to you today. I have learned so much, or just from this short conversation with you. You're clearly so well versed as a sound healer and so much experience and wisdom that you bring to your craft. Any final parting words about sound and sound healing or anything else that you feel called to share at all?
I think the encouragement for people to actually start to experience and experiment with their own voice
Mm,
as a way of self-regulation, as a way of actually gaining confidence, and all it
mm,
needs to start with is a hum.
mm.
You don't need to know words. I mean, for me, like, I know the first line to loads of songs, but then go beyond that. When I listen to music, I hear bass lines and
Mm,
I hear drum beats.
mm,
So like use your voice. Start experimenting with the mouth and creating sound for yourself. Because when you allow yourself to do that, it doesn't have to sound good. It's just a way of connecting with your raw, authentic self. And that can
mm,
take a bit of delayering because we've got these conditions and we've got these programs and we might have been told to shut up or that they didn't sound nice when we were little, but
mm,
come in and chant and just making the sound of creation, the R sound comes from the heart space. Or,
mm,
holding your body, and if you've got pain or you've got anxiety or whatever's going on for you, like that, where do you feel that? And what does that sound like? Ooh, it might be depending, just anything where you're starting to make sound
mm,
is really, really powerful as an empowerment technique
mm. I love
because we've all
that.
got the ability to heal ourselves.
Yeah,
We've just forgotten how to, so we can disempower ourselves a lot from
yeah.
constantly seeking outside sources for validation, for healing, for this, for
Mm,
that. But actually, when we go quiet and still and can just sit with the uncomfortable, so much can arise. And if we give sound to that, it can be really powerful and really transformational.
100%. And I think as women, we do struggle to use our voice. I mean, so do men, but for
Yeah.
different reasons. And when I know when I hold workshops and I'm quite good at using my voice. It's one of my gifts, which is why I do the podcast. And it comes more easily to me. But when I encourage women to use their voice or make a sound, there's just so much shame around it. Like, a conversation I had with one of the girls in my last session, she was like, I can't, Dharmi. She goes, every time I try to, it just gets stuck. But it's that constant sort of just chip away, see what sounds that we can make, and then from that to build on it. I remember I started when my daughter was born and she just wouldn't sleep. In those places where you're not asleep yourself and you're not really awake because you're so sleep deprived, I began channeling sounds and I would sing them to her. And it was my first experience of one, not having any shame around what I sounded like, because honestly, I was so tired I couldn't care. And two, it was just me and her anyway in the middle of the night, like no one else was really listening. But as I began to do it, like you said, it took over. It was medicine for me. Whether it put her to sleep or not, I don't know if that actually worked. But for me, it felt
Mm.
calming. It grounded me as a mother at the time. And that was my very first experience of just channeling sounds through me. And how,
Mm.
like you said, how empowering that is and how healing it can be as well for us, because we all have that already, those tools within us. So yes, you're absolutely right. Um,
Really powerful for the babies as well. I spent 6 months working on maternity as a nurse,
oh,
and watching some of the experiences of the young mums coming through and the babies that are quite distressed from birth, or the lights, and just always I could pick them up and I could just start humming or singing or
yeah.
going into that channeled sound, and always those babies start to relax, they start to
Mm,
unwind. And when I had my
mm,
youngest son, I'd done my yoga training and was quite embedded in the mantras at that point, and I
mm,
used to sing the Gayatri mantra every single night. That
mm.
was his bedtime ritual. Da-da-da-da. And he literally, I'd finish, he'd go, ah, and he'd roll over and go to sleep. It was just like, so it is, it's so powerful, so powerful.
It is. You just reminded me actually, yeah, because I've got yoga training in me as well, and I used to sing mantras to her as well when she was little. Before I started doing the light sounds,
Yeah,
because it was some kind of structure to follow, but also the vibrations are so, that lived
yeah,
experience of knowing how powerful those vibrations are and how calming and grounding they are as well. So
yeah,
yeah, great bit of advice there for people to go away and be playful. And also, like you said, if those of us who have got kids, or if we come across instruments in any environment, in any setting, be brave and go and pick one of those up and just have a bit of fun with them. It doesn't have to sound like anything. It doesn't have to sound like, you don't have to be a polished musician, right? But just have a mess around with it and see what comes out. And once you let those inhibitions go and you allow that to be channeled through you, like almost inevitably the sound finds itself and comes out of you by itself, and you don't. Yeah, it's when we get in our heads and try to create something, sometimes is when it all goes wrong.
yeah, definitely. It's just like feel, don't think it. It's like yoga to
Yeah.
yoga, not yoga. And then part of my journey with the nursing as well is when people are transitioning, it can be really
Mm,
powerful. In palliative care, I've worked with patients when actually just to create a safe space and just allow that channeled sound to come through,
mm,
to just create an environment where the spirit is able to just ease itself over to the other side has been a really beautiful experience as well. So even with
yes.
elderly relatives, when they've gone beyond speech and just sit and chant a mantra, or just be having
Mm,
some therapeutic music on or something, if you don't feel like singing, it's a
mm,
really powerful way to put the spirit at rest
yeah.
while people are in transition.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Emma.
Yeah.
Now, Emma, you and I feel like we could talk for hours, and there's just so much depth and richness in this conversation. I just know this whole episode's going to go down an absolute treat with my ladies listening in. But unfortunately, we do have to bring it to a close. And so we'll begin to just move into our closing ritual here. So I have a few cards. There are questions on these cards that I have not written. They're written by famous people. And there is a level 1 card, which is like an entry level card, a level 2, which is mid range, obviously, and level 3 are deep questions. Would you be willing to answer a card? And if so, what level card would you like to answer?
I'm happy to go deep. That's my Scorpio moon.
Oh, you're Scorpio. Great. I love that.
Moon. I'm Scorpio
Oh,
moon.
Scorpio moon. What's your sun? Leo?
Yeah. Gemini.
Gemini. Ah,
Interestingly,
okay.
I've recently had a Vedic astrology reading, so all shifts in Vedic astrology, and that's been very insightful.
Oh, how interesting. Oh,
Mm.
something jumped out and it is a level 3. I like jumpers. Okay.
Mm.
Let's see what it says. So this is a question by Jessie somebody. I can't read the surname. I'm sorry. Okay. But the question is, more importantly, what's a common misconception people have about you and how does it make you feel?
Oh, I think the only thing that's coming to mind really, or what I'm feeling, is my expressive, expansive, ceremonial space woman, like do-do-do-do, singing, dancing. I've got this big energy. But again, this is something that's shifted for me in the menopause, perimenopause is actually there's a very deep, thoughtful, um, yeah, there's another side to me that's I'm learning to be with actually as I've gone through this phase of my life, which not everyone out there will see or understand. It's I suppose it's that, yeah, the deeper aspect of me and this journey of being in the underworld that is personal and it's quite I share with my close friends, but what that's brought up for me, people wouldn't know
Hmm.
that part of me actually because
Yeah.
yeah, and whether that's just the phase I'm at in my life, I think as well, just this deep introspection and this yeah processing part, but that is not something that is outwardly shared, and so it's not a misconception maybe, but just like you say, you can't judge a book by its cover. You can see one part, but then
Hmm.
and it's made me realize you don't actually know. You can see people and how they are, but what are people dealing with? What's behind people's patterns and behaviors and words? You know, because I've got that ability to, having nursed for many years, and see, I can see the trauma in people, or I can see how
Hmm.
trauma impacts people and their journeys. It's, yes, I kind of deflected from the question, but yeah, like wow, you look at people's faces, you don't know what's going on inside.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I totally can see that because you are so good at holding those spaces and facilitating what you do, and you've been doing it for so long, you do it with such grace and authority and confidence that it can be potentially easy for people to overlook the fact that you have your moments of being sitting with your shadows too, that it isn't always just so easy. You're not always so confident and so sure about maybe what you're doing, but you work through it. You privately
yeah,
go through it and you work through your demons and your challenges as they come up. Yeah, totally can understand that. Emma, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show and
yeah,
talk to my audience and share your expertise. I am so, so grateful to you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
yeah. I
Um,
really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Yes, and
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's been beautiful to share.
most welcome. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Before we finish today's episode, I just wanted to let my lovely local listeners know that I've created a brand new in-person offering called a Sacred Exhale. These are beautiful, reflective gatherings for women who are tired of carrying the stress and the heaviness of the week into their weekend and are craving a space to pause, breathe, reconnect, and reset in a more intentional way. Each session will be shaped around seasonal living, natural cycles, and lunar energies, weaving together a delicious fusion of practices such as meditation, breathwork, journaling, movement, intention setting, rituals, and soulful conversations. The gatherings are taking place at BWB, the Collective in Whetstone in Leicestershire, and I'll pop the booking link in the show notes if your soul is whispering, I need this. I would absolutely love to welcome you into this space. Thank you for joining me on this episode of High Self Mastery. If something landed, moved you, or sparked a shift, I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and share this episode with a woman in your life that is also ready to rise. And if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast, especially in these early days. It really helps others to find this work too. If you're craving deeper support and sisterhood, join my mailing list using the link below, where you'll be the first to receive free meditations, learn about up-and-coming retreats, and other ways that we can work together. Until next time, honor your truth and trust in the timing of your becoming.